So I overheard, I was on a different app and I heard one of my sisters on another app talk about how when it comes to political leadership, that we don't ever have a leader who stands on business for us. Like we will prop somebody up, but once they get into a position, they end up being either grifting off of the movements that we have, or they end up into some type of Pan-Africanism. So it had me thinking, how can we get a leader that actually, no matter what side that they're on, whether they're on the Democratic side or the Republican side, as a Black American, how could we make sure that we have some type of unity no matter what, right? Because it shouldn't matter if you are a Republican or if you are a Democrat. So one thing that I also noticed is that most of our Democratic politicians usually get the most visibility, and they usually get the most, I would say, slideshow time, right? Those are the ones that we see out here doing the political theatrics for the most part, right? When the voting maps changed, we saw a lot of Black American Democrats outside, getting busy, having fights, being emotional, and in different meetings and things like that. And so I just wanted to have a good, I guess, table talk discussion with both Black American Democrats and Black American Republicans to see if there's some commonalities that we could come by, and whether we both agree that as reparations being on the bill is something that we should prioritize or not, right? Or whether if you're for it or if you're against it, and to have honest discussion about it, because we might have some Black Democrats that are against reparations, right? And or we might have some Black Republicans who are against reparations because they feel like it's unneeded. But I feel like as grassroots or day-to-day Black Americans, we understand that there is repair that needs to happen within our community, whether it looks like monetary value or not, right? So whether it looks like money or not is some things that we would like to change. So what would that look like within our community, right? So feel free to come grab a mic, share the space out. This is Black American Republican versus Black American Democratic type of conversation. Just trying to see where it's at. I really honestly think that what we're looking for in a political leader is someone who could unite both parties in a sense. So I hate to use him as an example, but when we had Barack Obama, it seems as though whether you were a Black American Republican or a Black American Democrat, you didn't care. You wanted to make sure Barack Obama was in office because of the representation that it would bring towards the community. Not because necessarily he had policies that would help us, but because it brought representation. And one of us being in that seat looked good for the future. And that's something that we both agreed on and came together and said, okay, this is something that needs to be done. And so what are some things that we can honestly have a conversation about and say, hey, what are some policies that we need to make sure fit the bill or in it? One of them that I would say is I did see that there was a leader in I think Illinois or like Chicago. There was a politician that created the Karen bill. And I don't know if he got really much traction on it, but I do remember there was a bill that was for people who falsely accuse Black Americans or falsely call the police on Black Americans. And I feel like that's the type of bill that we should agree on. Both sides should definitely go forward, not just in Chicago, but should be countrywide, right? We shouldn't be getting the cops called on us. We shouldn't be falsely accused. We have some of the highest anti-racial group crimes in this country. Anti-black crimes is one of the highest crimes. So the last thing we need is to be falsely accused by the police. People know our history with mass incarceration. We should definitely have policies like the Karen bill or the Karen Act push countrywide. So that's one of my things that I definitely put in the pot as far as whether you're a Democrat or you're Republican. You should be for and not against. But feel free to come grab a mic. You can start by stating what side you're on. Are you a Democrat? Are you a Republican? And then answering the questions on the prompt. Please like and share the live as well. Dang, I feel like I hear the club. Okay, there we go. I get better traction. So feel free, come grab a mic. I look a little rough today, but it's okay. You're more likely to come grab a mic if you see my face. But Black American Democrats versus Black American Republicans. Let's have an open discussion. Let's talk about what policies can we unite on for the Black American community, and are you for or are you against reparations? Feel free, come grab a mic. Let me see. Position myself. I don't know if it's on auto accept. Black American Democrats versus Black American Republicans. I feel like I maybe should have added some spicier questions because y'all be going at it on Twitter. I be seeing it, especially, you know, as soon as something happens, it's like, especially in our community, I feel like it's two different sides. Like something tragic could happen in our community. The Democrats are going to take a passive approach. The Republicans is right there ready to fight. It's just something that I've noticed. Like even with the high sunshine, I was gonna say even with the Rick Child situation, the Democrats was just like, "Oh, it happens," you know. The Republicans was like, "Nah, f that. We about to pull up." So, you know, there is like just some differences in how we handle things, but I feel like we shouldn't. I don't. As a community, I would like for us to be more proactive instead of reactive. I feel like as a community, we're so reactive. As soon as something happens within our community, we're picking sides on how we're going to have emotional theatrics about it. But like, how are we going to come together and make sure that certain things don't happen in our community? Right? Like, can we have some commonality? I'm not trying to, well, I am trying to do a little bit of a unity conversation, but more of a let's get on cold conversation. Because it should be, at this point in time, we should be less reactive and more proactive. We have too many seats at this point at the table for us to be only in a reactive position. When it comes to anything, when it comes to anything that happens, whether it's a political incident or a social issue, we have I feel like we have too many seats at the table of people who can make change happen effectively for us to always be in a state of reaction. Like, how do we put policies in place or at least put a chain reaction in place? Like, I don't want to see division on my timeline between Black Democrats and Black Republicans when there is a young Black American boy who was unalived. Like, I don't want to see one side saying, well, it happens, and then another side saying, we need to make sure this, that's reactive to the change. Like, I don't, you know, when the voting maps change, it's like one group did not care, the other group overly cared. It's like, okay, is there any type of unity between these two groups? Like, how do we, even when things like that happen of the voting maps changing, how do we educate our community to understanding the importance of it, right? And then how do we put things into place to rectify it so it's not necessarily affecting everybody in a negative light? And feel free to come grab a mic. All I ask is that you let me know what side you're on. If you're more of a Democrat, if you're a Republican, if you're Green Party. It's not on auto accept. I think I must have put it on auto accept again. Oh, it is on auto accept. But feel free to come grab a mic. Or if you just have something to say about either side, feel free to come grab a mic. But that's what my mind state is. I do, enjoy having the messy conversations, and I understand people really prefer to have the messy conversations, but sometimes we need to have some in-house chit-chats. We got to do some type of let's get on cold with some type of things. That's kind of what my mind state is. Like, how can we get on cold politically? Like, you know, I want to look more like a united front politically. That no matter if someone comes to, it shouldn't be like, hey, I have these policies or I want to do this for the black community. I don't know whether I should talk to a black Democrat or a black Republican. I might get some pushback if I talk to a black Democrat. I might get some pushback if I talk to a black Republican, you know? Because for me, this conversation stemmed from, I was on another app talking to, some people from the grassroots movement, and one of my sisters had a concern of how do we ensure that we get a black political leader, and we ensure that once we put them in position, they're not going to switch on us, and I 100% get that. Like, we'll think that we have somebody that's going to prioritize our community, and then next thing you know, we have an all-inclusive movement. While I understand that, it is more favorable, a lot of times these all-inclusive movements skip over our community, and we don't actually end up reaping the benefits of whatever it is, the policy that's getting pushed out. Or, we push a person up and they say that they're Black American first, but they end up being Pan-African first, which is nothing wrong necessarily with helping with the diaspora, but we wish that people were more transparent in their initial introduction, than just like, but it's now, ooh, what is that? Oh man, why do blue states have the highest unemployment and poverty rates? That's something to dig into. Why do blue states have the highest unemployment and poverty rates? Is there less priority on employment? I honestly, man, if I can get into debate between Democrats and Republicans, I don't know. But one thing that I've learned about the Republican side is that they're more about, getting to their bag, which I feel like there's nothing wrong about it. And then, I hate to say it, if this might be a stereotype, and correct me if I'm wrong, but Democrats are usually known for, digging in them tax funds, moving that money around. Whereas Republicans are more so like, we come with money, so we're looking at the real like policies and the improvements. But also, can we say that most of the Democratic states are overpopulated? A lot of times those are our sanctuary states where people can come in, and so that can also be a reason why there is a higher unemployment rate, and a higher poverty rate, is because those are usually our most populated states. So it's a higher number to scale from. But I don't have a definitive answer for that. The cost of employment and land use regulations. And definitely.
Hi.
Peace.
Hi. I just joined. What are we debating here?
It's really a Democratic versus Republican conversation.
Oh, I don't know anything about that. My bad. See ya.
Peace. Can we say, honestly, I feel like that's a nasty work stereotype for the Democrats, though, to just, the mismanaging of funds or the misallocation on policies. Because I feel like the Democrats do talk a good talk and they do talk a good game, right? But can we honestly say that we're aware of what will go into it. Um, because we'll have a Democratic, I guess, politician come in and say, we're going to lower the gas prices. But like, we all we see is the gas prices. But while we have a Republican president, and we know that the gas prices are directly tied to the war that's going on in Iran, so we know that until we win that war, we're gonna have high gas prices, and that's exactly like what that negotiation is set on, um, and so you know what I'm trying to say is like a wool over our eyes. I feel like when it comes to politics, and I think that's another reason why a lot more people go towards the Republican side is because we learn more about what's actually going on in our government versus um, our politicians just talking a good game. I talked earlier about the political theatrics, especially that comes on the Democratic side. I feel like when we have a Republican, led government, we just know a little bit more about politics, where the day-to-day people have more of an understanding what's actually going on in our country versus always wanting something good or, having things dangling in front of our face to make us want to vote. It's all about the vote. And once they get in office, it's like what actually really changes, what improvements have actually happened. We might not like the current Republican president, but we know what he's working on. We might not like what he's working on, but at least we know what he's working on. I feel like anytime that we got to see Joe Biden or Kamala Harris, it was either for a photo op, or if we saw Joe Biden, it was for. I'm not gonna lie. I just remember him being sick most of the presidency. Everybody kept saying he looked like he was on his way out. But you know, I don't want to be biased. I'm trying to be non-biased in this conversation. Um, I want to figure out how we can create some unity, because the thing is, the Democrats have the people. Whether we like it or not, they have the people, they have the eyes, they have the theatrics, they have the, you know, when Democrats pop out, people stop and see what's going on, right? What are they actually paying attention to? You know what I'm saying? We're doing research on what the Democrats are hooting and hollering about. Like, they have the monopoly on political visibility, to the point where they've been able to galvanize a majority ruling of people who are proud to claim Democrat, whereas people are not so proud to be openly Republican. So how can we, in some ways, unite to make sure that there's actually change in our group? Because you got one group, I feel like, that works more on what's going on the back end and actually cares about what's going on the back end. And then you have one group that's only cares about the front end and what things look like. Feel free to come grab a mic, though. Feel free to come grab a mic. Peace, peace. Hey, A-Dub. Or, another question. What would be the perfect political candidate for the Black American community? You're going to need somebody that, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, you're going to say that's that person. I think right now, one of the people that they're pushing is, which I think they might make him run for president. I'm not going to lie. I think they might make James Pearson run for Justin Pearson. Justin Pearson is his name. Justin Pearson, they might make him run for president. But I don't think that the Black Republican side actually likes him. I know that he is a Black Democratic, baby right now. And by the way that they push him out, especially when the voting maps changed and they had him out there looking like Martin Luther King Jr., he was preaching hard too. But, I think that most of people's main concern is whether he's going to switch up when he gets to that position, right? And if he has the heart to necessarily stand on business, or if we push him up to that position, I don't know about him. Peace. Peace, peace.
Hey, peace. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Okay, peace, family. I just was good. It's good to see a good title. Just from my perspective, I think it's time to really look at, like you said, the districts or the quote gerrymandering. I noticed here in Detroit that has happened or is continuously happening. It may be different in other places, but I think it's a very vital time that because of the Democratic Party kind of grasping for some type of support for the upcoming election, a lot of districts have been changed. A lot of block clubs and just communities have been kind of gentrified to where I believe even in my district, just seeing how people are not aware about a lot of what's been going on just for the past 5 or 10 years. So I think maybe a time to look at inclusionary policies and maybe see who exactly they are benefiting, because I think a lot of people are quick to call out gentrification, of course, but I think words like revitalization, of course, when you throw that word around, it may sound like you're just, redoing the area, but for who, particularly when the community is majority Black. So I think politically just need to kind of, amplify what does inclusionary policies mean? Who does it benefit for? And what communities, what neighborhoods, what block clubs are actually benefiting those, regardless of blue or red?
Oh, that is such a good one. Making sure that we're protecting our communities, and making sure that the programs that we put into place aren't being affected. That reminds me of what was happening in DeKalb County, in Georgia, where they closed down, most of the Black schools in DeKalb County. And so those inclusionary policies. Okay, thank you. Man, I didn't even know where that was coming from. If I accidentally dropped you, my bad. But feel free to come grab a mic again. I just couldn't figure out who that was coming from. But yeah, like what I was talking about, DeKalb County, about how they closed down these Black American schools. And so it was so crazy because when I did the research on the schools, these were the top rated schools in these areas. But now, because of the way the district is changing, now these top schools in these areas are being closed down. I mean, these are 7 out of 10 schools. These are 6 out of high graduation rates, high test scores. There's no reason why these schools should be getting closed down but because they're redistricting, they have prioritized closing down all of these schools. And so I think that whether you're a Democrat or Republican, I agree that we should be paying attention to what's happening in our direct communities and how this is affecting us. Um, you know, it really is a sad thing.
Mhm. Can I add, as far as the Republican side, I try to keep smoke equally for both sides. And if the Democrats are the big bad wolves, the question you have in the prompt, are you for or against reparations? I think it's a time where if people are voting, Black Americans are voting for a Republican Party, it's not just a time to vote spitefully just because of what the Democrats, have done historically, but actually ask the Republican Party, what are you going to do specifically for the Black community in regards to reparations? Because there was a time where at least my ancestors, they did vote Republican. And I think just historically, maybe it is a time for predominantly Black communities just to think for themselves and their family structure at that particular time during Reconstruction or after slavery, whenever that was, how important, what did they actually go through? What was some oppressive tactics that may or may not have worked? And then it relates to the Democrats by them implementing all the reparation task forces. I think it's a time where we really still don't have to choose a side, but actually just lean into, well, if the Democrats want us to vote blue, is it inclusionary? Who's it for? And if you're voting for Republican, of course, what are you going to do in regards to reparations historically for Black Americans? So it's a great prompt, by the way.
Thank you so much for complimenting the prompt. It's just hard to get people people to come up and share. Everybody wants the mess and the diaspora wars, but I feel like I want to still make sure that we're making productive change. One thing that I enjoyed on the other apps is that when it was time to get to business, it was time to get to business, but that was never the reason why we were getting together. We were getting together to actually have conversations that would help our community. And then if it was time to run somebody down, then, there was a rundown time for that. Hi, Vanessa. Do you have something to add to the prompt? Okay.
Yeah, and it's good to come back politically because here in Michigan in August, I believe it's the local election. And of course, in a predominantly blue, still a state, Trump is the enemy, of course. Like their talking points are still the same. I haven't really heard anything specifically from that side to say, hey, if you vote for me, this is exactly what's going to come to the Black community. It's very important that, the last election kind of just showed things and shook things up. But maybe now it's time to where if you're not going to vote, still run them down, because I think even though I didn't vote for the last election, I clearly held both sides accountable. And I still kept politically, reparations, of course, is my number one interest, main thing. But of course, there's other issues like the hate crime bill and other coming back to which political parties are going to. I really don't see either one. Honestly, it's really more of a Bloods and Crips type of a political theater of a war almost. But it's good to know that the information is out there and you don't have to choose a side. But if you do, at least try to vet, try to look at those politicians that are just saying things just to be saying things. And then when you understand that in 2020, there was a federal investigation of the Wayne County votes. And so a lot of elections have been investigated for election fraud. And I think whether it's Democrats or Republican, it's just the process of voting in general. Clearly, there's some flaws in voting. So let's just be honest when people are trying to shame people for not voting and say, well, if you don't vote, you don't care, you spite voting, whatever the case may be. Still look at how it's being implemented. The whole absentee ballot voting, that's being scammed here as well, just trying to get people to vote early so they can just count them off. But in 2020, they were using people that were in jail, people that didn't have those addresses or weren't registered voters. And so I'm not sure about the update on that too, but it's a continuing of history pretty much ever since slavery and even before. So I just want to appreciate you for letting me cook on that.
And thank you for grabbing the mic. I definitely appreciate that. And one thing that I was saying earlier is that I would say this. That the Democrats, they definitely have a advantage on the political theatrics, right? While it's like both sides, when I you almost always see that the ones that are making the most noise about policies or issues,
Quietest ones in the room. I mean, the loudest one. Yeah, I get what you're saying.
like they get outside. Like when I tell you, you are going to see these Democrats out here. So ideally, I want to figure out a way, how can we all make sure that we're still on code, if there is a common consensus that we can have amongst our group, that whether, you're loud about it or whether you're in the back seat, writing the bills, how can we make sure that the things that we're focused on will actually benefit our community? I while I appreciate the theatrics of the Democratic Party because I feel like they keep our community engaged in politics and what's actually going on, like, hey, pay attention over here, we have things that are actively going to affect us. you know I would
Well,
like Go ahead.
I got a question. I mean, because that is good. I'm thinking, man, I don't want it to lose me. Hold on one second. Hold on one second.
Yeah, I want to make sure the things that they barking about actually make sense, and also because I think about even recently when the NAACP, made that notion about having Black American athletes only choose to go to HBCUs. And while I do think that it was a good try, it was so much pushback. And so I think that if we came forward with a little bit more unity politically, that some of these initiatives and call to actions would actually have more impact over our whole community instead of us being quick to fight with one another. Because I'm not
I
gonna.
agree.
Yeah.
And I think that's where I lost my point, but you brought me back to my point of the organizational conflicts of interest because I think in 2022 that was my idea of saying if you're on the grassroots of the political side of things, I should say, then of course you're able to advocate for yourself, your family, your community in a very genuine way. But what I understood is that the people that are doing that may have affiliations with organizations like the NAACP and other conflicts of interest. So then those conversations kind of get into, okay, it has to be this way, or this is how this organization is moving in regards to grassroots activism or activism in the community. So I'm not sure if maybe it's a question to ask you, just something to think upon. Is that something we should prioritize going forward, or is it something maybe if we just do our research and say, okay, this is the organization, these are the people, and maybe just kind of just do our research to see this is how they're moving. Is this something tangible that we can align with? Is this something good we can amplify? But it just seemed like I kept running into circles because those things don't equate to reparations, or they really don't. They're really not tangible, and it's just tokenism of marches and just free programs and things that they've already been doing. But in regards to like very specific things for Black people, just specifically for Black people, they'll go against that. These organizations will tell you, you haven't put the work in, or I've been with this group for so long. And so I'm not sure for me, is it just, identifying those organizations and saying, hey, how can we work together just for reparations? Or just saying, hey, what can you do for reparations while I do my grassroots activist, way for reparations, and then we'll just, we'll meet at the table if it all works out, type of a thing.
I feel you, and I feel like that's kind of where people have that rift with the Black American Democratic Party, right? Or that side of things is whether what you're fighting for is actually gonna, if the bottom line is actually going to benefit the Black American community, or is this something that's going to be inclusion? Like, are we using our historical civil rights activism tropes and practices in order to create emotional engagement from the community just for it to be for a policy that's never going to even be able to touch our community? And that's where I would hope, I want to keep having conversations like this. And if this is just the first one, that we can create some type of on coldness. Because the reality, there needs to be a code. And I get that at this point we do have Black Americans that are saying, I'm just going to be anti the Democratic Party until they do something for us. The reality is that I don't think that that's going to be a protest that's going to be effective, because they're already in a standpoint of being more inclusive. And that's been like that since the 70s. You know, it's always been the Black and brown community, or the Black people and the other underprivileged community. Whereas this has changed. That's when we had a majority of influx of immigrant groups that would come in, and they were starting from the bottom, so they were going through the same things that we're going through. We have currently in 2026, we have these same, I guess, groups coming in and being in higher classes than our Black American community. So at some point we have to stop prioritizing the wealth gap of it all and start being more prioritizing our ethnic group. And I think that some of these organizations are still running off the old models instead of moving forward and becoming more exclusive instead of more inclusionary.
Right. And I think it's race. Really, the sad part is when they do refer to Black people, it is in a very racial constructive way. I'll just say it that way. And then I'm glad you said ethnic group, because the only way, or the best way for me, is to understand, okay, if you are a Black Detroit or a Black New York, wherever you're from, your family's history may be a little bit similar, may not be the same, but they had to migrate during this time, or they came during this time, or there's some sort of relevancy. And I think that's where people feel like they have to choose a side, rather it's you're the field or the house Negro. But really, I haven't felt like I've taken a stand. If you're choosing your family, you're choosing yourself, choosing your community. Am I choosing the Democratic Party? Am I choosing the Red Party? Or am I just choosing what's best for the community? So how that looks is probably different from Detroit to Jersey. You get what I'm saying? But I get if it's a blue state or a blue community, like the Black Caucus and certain organizations, I've had success with, trying to see how things have moved across the country, but from an organizational standpoint. Now, from grassroots, it's like individuals are working those things. So maybe that's kind of the silver line of saying how does that get back to on codeness, like you mentioned earlier, is once the information, the work, the advocacy, and the success after we vote, who should still get ran down, the vetting, there still isn't cohesion. That's probably the best word. It's more so of you do what's best for you, but then when it comes time for us to come together, we're all supposed to just march, on the same beat. And that never really has happened. It hasn't happened in a very long time. Even with the civil rights, learning about a lot of that history, it just seems very organizational. But then from a grassroots, there's always been people that have been on the righteous side. So maybe that's what we have to understand. It's just being able to use discernment of those still doing the work on both sides, but saying this still works regardless of if you're red or blue, if you claim to be this or that, it still works for your community, and still maybe be able to share resources and data and facts to back it, instead of just saying, well, you need to just vote this, or, oh, you're not voting because they're Black, or you're not voting because this. It's not about a racial thing. It's about, like you said, how inclusionary is these policies? How does it affect the community? And so that's where I'm at, really politically. Not sure if I should even vote next month here, but if I do, I do want to lean red, but I don't want to just circle red just to be circling red. So that's why I like this prompt, by the way. So I do encourage anybody that is on the red side to maybe encourage me to say, hey, this is a candidate in your community that actually is pushing this policy that would benefit your community. But I still have my homework to do. So, I'll land on that.
Thank you. Hi, surfing for heaven.
Hey, good morning. How are you?
I'm good.
Morning.
Yeah, I think the gentleman speaking before me, I think he's correct. I think the Republican vote is, the vote of the people. I don't, and I think that the Dems and the liberals definitely trying to push this racial divide that we continue to see, here on TikTok and here on the media. And it's every, they really try to push this racial narrative. And, we, as in 2026, I feel like we've come a long way. And I think we're only, for my, before TikTok, I thought we were getting way more unified, and then you watch TikTok and you feel like it's maybe not that unified. But yeah, and I feel like the Dems are really trying to push this narrative. They're trying to keep us divided. I really do. You know,
I agree. What side do you lean on, or just I guess your history of a voter? I would say I have a history of voting blue. Maybe before I've done my research, and then I became an unapologetic non-voter the last couple of terms. So here I am today, trying to figure out, should I stay on the non-voter side or should I lean red? But for you, if you don't mind sharing.
same here, man. Before the shutdown, the pandemic, I was always a Democratic voter. Like I love the Democrats. They're always the ones that are like speaking up where nobody'd speak up and questioning the government. To me, that's what the Democratic Party kind of looked like. And then you had some real winners, man. You had people like Obama and, Bernie Sanders. These guys are, I mean, I loved Obama and the way he used to speak, and you listen to him speak about immigration, about being an American and what a privilege it is to be here. I mean, that was our guy. So yeah. And then, but today the Democratic Party it's just so different than what it used to be. So
I got a question
yeah.
because I agree with you. I think to a fault, I live in a predominantly black community. So when Obama was running, of course, he was a black candidate. And just what were your true sentiments of maybe viewing people voting specifically because, okay, Obama's a black man. He's going to, he should win. He's going to do good for us. Maybe what were your true sentiments during that time and during those
Yeah,
terms?
I thought he'd do more for the black community too. I kind of did. I really thought he would have done more for the community, but and it seemed like he really kind of pandered to the gay people. But I don't know. I still love Obama. He was super funny. He united us. He was a good president. I mean, compared to what we have today, and I think Trump's okay too. I just don't think, like, as an American, we were all pretty proud to have Obama up there.
Do you think it was more so reverse when Trump became president? Like, was it the other side of the coin saying, "Yeah, he represents this faction of
No,
white
for
America"?
me, it was at Hillary Clinton when she was like, "Oh, you won't show your tax return," and then he was like, yeah, I'm not showing, and none of your friends are showing theirs either. And he's like, and he basically, put her on point, put her on blast, and she had nothing to say because it was all true. And that's when we all kind of realized, like, oh, all these guys are working together. It's all just dirty politics, big money stuff, and that really exposed it right then. And he's done it. He's done it so many times, and he even says it like, this is the way America has worked. So. But that was it for me. It was him just showing like the corruption of our government and really exposing it and making us all, like, we could see it right there, right firsthand. We all saw it. So yeah, it was pretty good.
Well, how do you feel in general about race in America in regards to politics? Do you think that there is enough politicians in office, or do you think that there needs to be, how many more presidents will it take for racism to become defeated in America?
And for me, working in big cities, like, the black community definitely needs some help for sure. But the racism aspect, because I work with thousands of people, and if you're good, we hire you. It doesn't matter what color. If you pass our test, you have a decent resume. I mean, you got to take a test, and that will stack it up, where you sit. But you really do. You ride. For me, you ride in this world on integrity, on character, on mastering your craft. You don't get anywhere in this world just by pointing a finger and blame. You know what I mean? That. So for me, race, for my world before TikTok, racism was like such an ancient, old grandpa crotchety thing. Like, for my world, my perspective. And I remember I deal with, I oversee, a huge, huge portion of downtown, all the marinas. I mean, again, we have thousands of people. I'm one of the people at the top. So race never, ever. In fact, if you ever came at us some ignorant racist crap, like you're so far out of there, like you are so gone. Like we will not only a liability, but we just can't have that ignorant mindset. We just can't have that. That shit just
Right.
doesn't work.
Right.
Um,
Now, what if it's discreetly? What if it's not openly? What if it's uh, practices like discriminatory practices, choosing, picking of hiring of jobs necessarily? Do you think that is
yeah, there
something that
again,
can be
man.
combated?
Like I just hired a black gentleman, and he's such a good, mechanically he's so good.
Right, but
Like he just
politically,
understands. So for
politically,
me,
politically, with Obama being technically the or quote the first black president, how many
mhm.
more black presidents or just presidents in general, just not even thinking about their ethnicity? How many more politicians in general would change
Well,
some of the laws and
honestly, man, more
practices?
more blacks need to start running for office because that's one of the bigger issues that you guys have is that you guys don't have enough political leaders in the community. Like we have Ben Carson. I used to work for him. Ben's awesome. Ben is so good. But
So
you need more Ben Carsons.
we have the first quote female black mayor here in Detroit for the first time, right? But the
That's
good
cool.
and the good thing about that is this has never happened, right? And the city of Detroit is predominantly black. So of course, this should be something good, right? For me, for my family, right? But the political conversation of reparations happened and it stalled, it failed, and she was able to win an election. And a lot of people still are unaware about reparations just on a political, not even legal, just politically with policies, redlining, Jim Crow. Maybe not for you, but of course in Detroit and New Jersey and through the Midwest, these things have been going on, for hundreds of years. And these communities are still affected by the ramifications of white flight and people leaving and then certain people owning land and monopolizing those communities. So I think that's what I mean about racism, meaning that, yes, just because there's a black person in office doesn't necessarily mean it's going to happen overnight. It's going to change. They still have a job to do. And should I expect that person to do a job for my community? How does that look for each side, each political party? And I think that's why this conversation is really important to have, regardless of if you're red or blue. If you're, regardless of your ethnicity, what can we unite on? And if you're going to not unite, what is your specific policy? What is your interest? Because maybe that's different for me, and me and you. Your interest might be taxes, mine's might be reparations, but there still should be some common ground in that. But the problem is race is what I think is dividing every single community.
Well, community as a whole, like we would like to see, and I don't know if you've been to Atlanta, but I've spent some time in Atlanta, and that is the Black Mecca. I mean, there's a black mayor there too, and there's so much black pride there. Like they are so proud of that city, and it's a neat place, man. It is. It's a cool. Like I like Atlanta. It is a cool place. So I think if more communities like that can kind of pick up on what they're doing, because it is a really neat, fun place to go chill. I mean, there's really nice people there in downtown Atlanta. It was just so good. Um, and it really is the black. They'll let you know this is the Black Mecca. They'll never have a white mayor. Never, ever, ever will they have a white mayor. So I don't know. I just look at Atlanta. I think maybe we could start integrating some of that into these other cities, make it feel more like Atlanta. I don't know.
So the thing about that
Can I
is,
jump in here real quick? Because
I'm
I
sorry.
feel like I did want to touch on something that y'all were going back and forth about. When are we need to get past the point of our black representations being tokenized. I think that that's where we're still at, even when we talk about Barack Obama or we talk about the first black woman mayor in Detroit, is that they become this podium of change just by existing. Like they gave Barack Obama a Nobel Peace Prize just because he was a melanated president. It wasn't because he did something that was so monumental. Yes, he did, bring the troops back home during that war, which, was one of the asks that everyone, voted for him for, and he did something that he said he was going to do. But before he even got to that point, they were just throwing things at him because of a token. Oh my gosh, because they're tokenizing him. And I don't know if that's something that we're going to see in our time. I think that the most that we can do is start to push more of our youth to go into politics, so that by the time maybe our kids are, um, adult. Oh, brother. By the time our kids are adults, that we could possibly see the point where they're no longer tokenized, and we can actually see effective change come from these political leaders. But I think that we're just at this point right now where if we hire someone of a different racial group, and this is a segue into another question I was going to ask you guys: how do you feel about Kamala Harris? How do you guys feel about? Thank you. How do you guys feel about Kamala Harris and AOC running for president? At Vice Kamala Harris is. There's rumors that Kamala Harris is running for president and AOC is running for vice president, and whether we think that that's going to be another token pick, or if there's going to be effective change to come from those two groups coming together, especially during this political time.
It's too woke. That crowd is they're the reasons why I no longer Democrat, right? Stay woke and the whole just huge fight on, unaliving babies, the AB thing. I'm like, and that's great. I get it. I'm not totally against pro-choice or I'm not with that thing, but give me something more here. Give me a little something more to vote with. And AOC, man, she's got some of her talking points. You're like, whoa, I couldn't imagine. And then Gavin Newsom, that's the other guy they say they might be the Democratic guy. He's so corrupt. They got an FBI guy. I guess you'll see. He'll be in the news here pretty soon. But there's a guy in Texas that's pretty good. He's a super religious Democrat guy, and he's pretty cool. So there's a couple out there that I've heard, but no, not AOC, not Kamala Harris. Remember, Kamala Harris only won when she ran the first time. Not with Biden, but just on her own. She only got 2% of the vote. At the DNC. So why would they even pick her in the first place? America, the Democrats didn't even like her. So why? I don't understand that. I don't get that choice at all. Yeah.
Well, in my community, I know that people still vote in my community, but for the most part, yeah, when it came time to vote, I think for Kamala, I think it's important for the Black community to do more research, because the first time there was research about her, but it seemed like I was getting pushback, and Obama actually came out and said, "Oh, is it because she's a Black woman?" But like I said, mentioned earlier, I mentioned that in Detroit, there's a Black female mayor. So it's not me not wanting to, go against my own women, but it's the fact that she was oblivious to certain policies and issues in my community. As people were still asking her, she wrote out a plan for, I believe, for Black men. And I looked through that plan. I didn't agree with it. So I think now, I don't think she's going to win. It's not because I don't want her to win, but I just think just from the first time around, people knew just because we learned from Obama, just because he, this all skin folk are not kinfolk. We're not going to vote for like that. But there is a generation of people still voting. And I think to the real Bap's point is it's going to take generations. So realistically, what is tangible, like she mentioned, to raise generations? And if it takes a couple generations for there to be more Black politics, or just candidates, I should say, what type of changes as far as policies and procedures should be taken in place? Because gerrymandering and redistricting and still a lot of things are going on that I think are not being addressed. So what is more tangible? What should be amplified if she does run? And then if she does address those things or is more knowledgeable in research, then yeah, I could see people voting for her. But I just don't think people are just going to jump on the bandwagon because of the skin color again. It's going to really be, what is she talking? And how inclusionary is that? And how specific are those policies? Is it going to be the same rollout? Will she go back to the gym and actually follow up with those communities in regards to reparations? I'm not expecting Kamala Harris to run on a reparations platform, but yeah. going to say, I'm not expecting her to run on a reparations platform, but I think she's going to probably lose if she doesn't even mention what's been going on in the past few years, if she wants that particular vote from the community. At the same time, she's not going to win, but it's more so, what is she going to provide? I mean, I just don't understand what she's going to provide anything differently from what Biden and previous Democratic politicians and electors, what they provided in the past. So I'll just land on that.
Yeah, I think that she represents another version of that tokenism politics, which is, I get why if you look at the policies that she ran on versus Trump is talking about, I think he ran on birthright citizenship, removing birthright citizenship, and then his consensus is that he was going to clean out the government. And I think hers was more so lowering gas prices and lowering the cost of groceries. Those are
But there's other than emo, that's the best way to get them. This is really cool. Honestly speaking, it's very cool.
yeah, please have some decorum when you jump on this stage because I'm blocking heavy at this point. And so, but I think that that's, where we're at when it comes to social politics is that tokenism. I'm grateful, in this conversation. If anything else, we agree that there's been a lot of this tokenist, forms of political theater going on. But the important thing is paying attention to what policies they're running on. And when I saw that the rumor that Kamala Harris and AOC were running,
Good boy.
that's the first thing I thought is like, oh, y'all are doing this for a show. But what I don't understand is why we keep playing political theater when it's real people. Like, this is our government. Why are we continuing to treat it like it's social media? Political, while it's cool that we're having political conversations on social media, I do not want to feel like my president of the country is a influencer or using influential buzzwords in their choice on whether I should vote for them. Like, I don't want to see, I'm not going to lie, I don't want to see another election period that looks like, here's the skeleton in this person's closet, and here's the skeleton in that person's closet. Oh, you see this person out here dancing with Beyonce. I do not want to see that. I'm not going to lie to you. Like, I'm hoping that the more we have these conversations, the more people start to actually get serious about politics and actually pay attention. Because I definitely, spent this last year having open dialogue about the things that Trump was doing in office, but I plan on having the same open dialogue whether we have Kamala Harris, whether we have a Democrat in office or a Republican, because it's time for people to wake up. These being able to dangle, something small like gas prices or grocery prices in front of us versus actually, having conversation on higher education or continuing education or creating more opportunities. Like, none of them ran on employment rates, but yet we're having such a hard time with employment rates in this country right now. Like, if not one of them have a conversation about employment rates, if not one of them have an active, honest conversation about things that day-to-day Americans are going through, then I feel like I wouldn't vote either.
Yeah, and you know what I just wrote down? I wrote down neighborhoods and communities in agreement with combating racial, social, political agendas. So it's almost like there is no unison or unified front as far as the grassroots to combat all three. Maybe politically, it may be easier to get together and push back on data centers. That's something that a lot of people have been crashing out about. A lot of people have been going to meetings either for or against data centers. But like socially and racial, of course, in regards to policies, I think there is really no unified collectiveness in any community, at least for me, to combat all three in unison. And then how does that look for each community going forward, regardless of race, regardless of history. But at least there is some sort of blueprint in what worked for this particular community, instead of it being these are the organizations, these are the investors, these are the political agendas that we have to endorse necessarily. But what are we doing to actually combat these things? And I think trying to attack things one at a time may seem like it's a process of keeping us kind of in a hamster wheel, over and over again. But of course, race to me is the most detrimental one, because the language is continuously changing from, Black Detroiters to inclusionary, so it's almost like when it gets time to implement things, it's not the same. And socially, how it allows everyone else to kind of just, tag along, and politically leaning towards one party, spiting the other party, not being open in the look on both sides, like you just said. That's why I didn't vote at all, because I did want to look at both sides, regardless of if I didn't vote. I had a particular policy or issue that both sides weren't addressing. And I think even going forward, I could still hold on to that particular interest in the 5 points and still attack each party without saying I have to lean to this side. I'm still combating, racist constructs, social and political agendas. And this is what will, be beneficial for my community going forward for the next generations. But it seems like I'm starting at the beginning every time I make some sort of progress, because it's everyone for themselves, of course.
I agree. And I usually do a debate topic where and I want to start doing them again. They said I was causing division with a new American versus old American debate topics, because I feel like when soon as Kamala step her feet out here into this political realm and start running, this is going to be the main things. And I think that a lot of people, I in our community, yes, but it's not just our community. I hate that there's this nuanced thing where we can't talk about just Black issues, right? And so, or politicians act like that they can't just focus on Black issues. They have to be inclusionary, and I think that where our lines of inclusionary in is that older American versus new American conversation points. That's another one of my concerns, is that a lot of these newer American presidential candidates would only focus on newer American citizens and ignore some of the older American citizens who still need representation, who still need leadership, who still need folks that are advocating for us. Regardless how long we've been here, we still have issues too, and so just making sure we have a leader in place, even on the presidential level, but just a leader in general that looks at both sides and doesn't just say one side needs more of our help or one side needs more of our resources.
Right. And to be honest, I think age is another way to divide in regards to a social agenda. And for example, maybe you have heard of the teen takeovers. So, of course, it's summertime. And when the teens want to go downtown, they have been issued curfew. They actually had buses taking hundreds of children to jail and calling their parents. And basically, yes. And basically putting kind of a shadow of, you're bad, don't come down here. But then the fireworks, the Henry Ford fireworks that has been going on since the 50s, these events go on. And of course, everyone wants to go to the firework. Everyone wants to go. But you know who really wants to go? The same white people that fled Detroit. But they know the teens are going to be downtown and they're scared. So the problem is they'll use socially age. And it's sad because I have children and I don't feel like I'm young, but there's times when I have conversations with men and women older than me. And the first thing they say is, "Oh, how old are you? You seem young." And it don't make me offended. But if my age is the first thing that you have to decipher versus what I'm telling you, then of course that is kind of being divisive. And that's not how people can come together as far as building forward is, well, of course you got to be 18, of course, you know what I'm saying? I'm not I'm not underage, but you know, I don't ask people their age. That's not the first question I always ask people in regards to politics. Of course, if you are a registered voter, if you live in a particular community, if you have invested family and interest and legacy there, the conversation is just a little bit different. So I just dislike that, like you said, with dividing by age, and you know, especially with the elders. Of course, the elders have more stake because they're retired. They have the organizations, they have the structured way of doing things in their community. But then, of course, the teens and the younger generation, there is no connection to how they can be involved and how they can push it forward. It's more so, well, y'all acting up, y'all being bad, y'all generation bad, and then my generation is right in the middle, and I kind of got both sides. So where do I lean? Do I help the young generation more than the elders? Do I respect the elders and look down on the takeovers? No, I just look at things that we shouldn't have to choose a side if you're really being genuine with, you know, what you're called to really move upon for your family and your community. And so I just want to thank you again for that point.
I get what you're saying. I'm honestly noticing that not just in politics, but on the social level, that they are starting to radicalize youth and make it. It's kind of a form of discrediting. Whereas we should have some more unity when it comes to the youth, because we have people entering into Senate houses or even state level representatives at the age of 18, right? And so how are we trying to deny their voices, or we're trying to amplify their voices? This is the future. So how do we make sure that there's still unity when the older folks are retiring out and the newer folks are coming in, right? We don't want them to feel as though that their voice doesn't matter. You know, a new person turns 18 every day. And so that's a new voter, while we're also having our older voters getting out the way. So I definitely agree with you with that. Hi, Philfa. Are you there? I saw you come and grab a mic.
I see the teacup. Yeah, and even with regards to reparations, I think on the local level, the eligibility was you had to be 18 or 21, and so now I'm thinking, wait, so you mean to tell me that there are no youth that have lineage traced back to enslaved ancestry now, you know? So I do have a disdain for when you break things down generationally, because there really isn't, even that was created by pale faces, of how generations are divided from baby boomers and silent generation to Gen X and all of that. But I think it's important to know that it's not the same, you know? So it's pretty much everyone's not the same, and we got to put things in proper context. I don't know if somebody just
Uh,
jumped up, but
yeah, I dropped him. But yeah, I'm not even gonna lie. That is so crazy to me. Even like the teen takeovers, man, that hits home. I get it, but some things, like, I get that gets to be radical, but some things are like a coming of age here in America, you know.
and I'm not
So
even upset about. I guess from my point of view is if every year, you know, it's summertime, you know, so I expect everyone to want to go out and hang out. I don't even think it's just the teens, right? So you have elders. There's no elder takeover. There's no millennial takeover. You know what I'm saying? So I just think when you do it in a way where there's punishment, there's legal
they
punishment.
could organize. They can organize it
Yes.
or something. You know what I'm saying? Like, well,
Hmm.
I remember we used to have, you know, I'm from Jersey, so we used to have a beach day, and everybody would meet up, no matter what high school you came from, and we'd all come and take over the beach. But it wasn't this thing that was like bad, you know. It was just like A coming of age of unity. Like, we go to all different schools. You might know somebody that go to the high school across town. You get to meet with them. Everybody gets to meet each other's friends and things like that. And so I definitely do think we do gotta, pay attention to that, especially
Sobre
within the
reaccionaste
nationality.
anoche. No, pero es que anoche sí lo vi y estaba
Do you think
muy...
wait, do you think it should be a dedicated place for youth? Or because I mean I guess the parks. So the first thing that they did here is say, well, we're putting 100 million to the neighborhood parks, which is a good thing. It's great to have parks, but then now are you saying the teens should only play at the parks and they shouldn't come downtown? And if they do, the same curfew and laws apply to them, because there's still going to be that faction of youth that are going to go downtown and not go to the park. So I still think, still seeing through it is that, well, you can't make people.
You still there? Uh, okay, so I was just in the park the other day, nearby, and they just had an all class reunion, right? And they had for a high school. And they had every generation. I mean, they had people coming up there and said, I graduated in 86. I graduated in 51. All class reunion. And it was nice, organized. Everybody had a table. They was out there dancing, doing electric slide, all of that, right? It can be done. It's something that definitely can be done, as far as organizing it. But it's going to take, man, it's going to take a leader that's not looking at our youth and looking at a way to criminalize the youth. It's going to take someone that says, hey, we have this going on. How do we make this more community oriented? Because the community is not just the tax-paying people, right? We're still ushering in new members into our community every generational class. We're ushering new adults. And a lot of times these teen takeovers be 16 to 18-year-olds. They're like at that prime age where they're transitioning from adolescence to adulthood. So I definitely think that it's more of a leadership issue as far as that transition into create an effective community for all age groups, not just the age groups that they want to see outside.
And to be honest, I'm gonna give kind of a compliment, to my mayor, because I think that's what it is going to take. It is going to take more female Black mayors in predominantly Black communities to put money, hold developers, hold these things accountable. Even though I understand, the political theater that we talk about a lot, sometimes we do overlook the things like repairing sidewalks, putting money in the parks, revitalizing areas, still putting an eye and prioritizing things, even if things don't get seen all the way through. And in regards to, reparations, I just see it as, well, even though it was the first time it was voted upon, certain political issues are more important than others. And I think everyone prioritizes it differently. So, of course, I can keep reparations number one, but then I can still make a list of things and still keep that as the main thing. And still maybe one day still hold her accountable and still follow through on that. But as far as the things that she is doing, I can see that. And to say that she cares to a point of saying, okay, well, at least, she's going to try to implement some money going to parks. She's not just going to stand on, well, lock them up. If they come down here, lock them up, because I'm sure there probably are some cities with those sentiments. But even so, it is important that it goes back to that too.
I be feeling like beggars can't be choosers. One minute I'm like, come grab a mic, I'm up here by myself. The next minute they just busting through, mic off.
Well, it
Melting
was a
in the
good productive
background.
conversation. It was a good conversation with the one brother. What he was talking about, he was a Democrat and voting and leaning, and I think he's kind of the general prototype for most white Americans that see both sides right now. But the problem is he has his policies. Of course, he has his interests, and I think that's why he left. Is yes, there's some things we can come together for, but if my policy, if my issue, and my agendas politically, socially, and to combat race as well, if it's these things, how do those things align with your agendas? And a lot of times I think that's what we're up against. It's still up against the white liberal. It's not necessarily because they're white, just anyone of the liberal political mindset to think we all should have to come together and unify and be inclusive in order for it to work. I think now it's still, regardless of race, I think it's still a time to attack and give those people kind of a way to think openly about, yeah, you're right. You're right about Obama somewhat. You're right about Trump. Yeah, that's cool. But my agenda is this. What's your agendas? Okay, you have a business, you hire people, cool. But you're not in a predominantly black community. You're in a predominantly white community. So it's easier for him to hire any and everybody. It might be a little bit more easier to hire for me, but clearly I'm probably going to have to hire some black folks because of where I'm at. So it's just different, but it's good for me because that's what I'm here for as well on social media, because it's clearly we're in that time now where people will rather open up their phones and say how they truly feel instead of going to the people that may have a little bit more power and influence to make these decisions. And like you said, we don't have to play the diaspora wars as well. I was sitting next to a whole Pan-African, but she had some of the same sentiments about same things I have in my community too. So I'm able to sit ideologies aside and then to keep the main thing in proper context. But the problem is politically, we're just all over the place when we're trying to unify as one.
Man, they're dropping like flies. Yeah, I am about to cut this off. I know my phone about to die. I ain't gonna make it to the charger in time. But thank you so much for joining the conversation. But I want to say one area that I've lived in many different states, and one state that I would say that I look up to their community politics is the state of California, and just how when they want something done, they make it happen for their state. And it could be something as small as, I remember when the e-cigarettes started coming out in masses, and they didn't want their kids being able to get them, even though you're supposed to be of a certain age group, but the kids were getting them. They banned those things so fast all over the state of California that it wasn't even funny. And I feel like I haven't seen any type of, when we want change, we get it done just like that in most other places. Now, I can't speak for other communities in other states, but seeing that, how when those parents are mad, they don't want certain things, they make sure the whole state, don't care what city you're in, don't care what county you're in, these e-cigarettes are banned. You're not supposed to be selling them. You can't even go out here